He should not have said it out loud, but the moment she whispered it, the entire lobby seemed to stop breathing. "Can you protect me for life?" I didn't even know her name yet. I only knew the look in her eyes, and that look was the kind that appears right before something breaks. For a second I thought I heard her wrong. Maybe the noise of the lobby twisted the words. Maybe she said something else. But then she looked straight at me again, and she mouthed it slowly. "Please." The man standing inches from her didn't notice the whisper. His attention was fixed on her face like a predator studying a wounded animal. Expensive suit, polished shoes, smile that didn't reach his eyes. The kind of man who had never been told no in his life. I had seen men like him before. Years ago on offshore rigs, in tight mechanical rooms where pressure built quietly before everything exploded. Danger has patterns. Human beings do too, and right now every alarm in my head was screaming. I was standing by the security gate in my maintenance overalls, holding a diagnostics tablet, pretending to check the lobby sensors. Invisible. That's the role people like me play in buildings like this. Executives float through these halls like they own gravity. Maintenance workers are just part of the furniture. Normally, I prefer it that way. Quiet work, predictable systems, no drama, especially since my life outside this building revolves around one person. My daughter Lily, 8 years old, curious about everything, still believes the world mostly makes sense. My real job, is making sure she grows up in a stable one, so I keep my head down, I fix what's broken, and I avoid problems that don't belong to me. That was the rule until that whisper. The man leaned closer to the woman again. His voice dropped so low the security cameras probably wouldn't catch it. "You made a mistake," he murmured. She didn't move, didn't flinch. But I saw her hands tighten around the strap of her bag. I recognized the posture immediately. Not anger. Control. The kind someone uses when they're terrified but refusing to show it. I slowly shifted my weight and looked closer. The woman was dressed like every executive in this building. Tailored suit, perfect posture, sharp eyes. Except those eyes had just asked a stranger for protection. From him. The man smiled wider. "You really thought you could cut me out like that?" He whispered, still no reaction from her, but something in his tone was wrong, too calm, too certain. And then he said something that changed the whole equation. "You ruined a billion-dollar move," he said softly. "Did you really think that wouldn't have consequences?" Now I understood. This wasn't a random argument. This was pressure, slow, methodical, psychological pressure, the kind that builds quietly until the system fails. My eyes scanned the lobby automatically. Security guards near the desk, 20 feet away, watching, doing nothing. A group of employees walked past the elevator bank. They noticed the tension instantly. Then they did what people in corporate buildings always do. They looked down at their phones and kept walking. "Not my problem." That phrase runs this place more than electricity. The man stepped even closer to her, too close. His polished shoe crossed a seam in the granite floor. My brain measured the distance instantly. Less than 2 feet now, aggressive proximity. He lowered his voice again. "You're predictable, Ava," he said. "Ethics, integrity, rules." So that was her name, Ava. "You really think those things protect you?" He continued. She held his gaze, but her breathing had changed. Shorter now, shallower. That's when I saw the real problem. This wasn't the first time. This had been happening for a while, which meant the system had already failed her once, maybe more. I looked at the security guards again. One of them lifted his radio slightly. The older one shook his head. They weren't going to step in. Too much liability, too many gray areas, no physical contact, no direct threat, just intimidation. Technically, nothing illegal. And that's when the man leaned in even closer and whispered something I barely caught. "You should have stayed quiet." Ava's eyes flicked toward me again, just for half a second, but the message was clear. No one else was going to help. And suddenly I remembered Lily sitting at the kitchen table 2 nights ago, coloring a picture of our apartment building. She had drawn tiny stick figures in every window. When I asked her why, she said something simple. Because someone should always be watching. Kids believe the world works like that. Adults know better. Still, that drawing flashed through my head right then, and the rule I live by started to crack. If something is broken, you fix it, even if it wasn't your fault. I took one step forward, not fast, not dramatic, just one quiet step. Then another. I stopped 3 feet behind Ava, close enough that the man would notice me if he turned, far enough that I wasn't touching either of them. I didn't say anything, I just stood there. A wall. The man noticed the shift in space almost immediately. Predators always do. His eyes slid past Ava's shoulder and landed on me. For the first time he looked irritated. "Is there a reason maintenance is hovering?" he said coldly. I didn't answer. Instead, I glanced down at the floor between us. His shoe was still across that granite seam, inside the restricted proximity zone near the elevator sensors. Technically, a violation, small but real. He turned back toward Ava, trying to ignore me. "You think hiding behind building staff changes anything?" He sneered. I finally spoke. My voice came out calm, flat, the same tone I use when explaining mechanical faults. "Sir," I said quietly, "you are currently standing inside a restricted operational buffer zone." He blinked, not expecting that. "You need to step back 4 feet," I continued. "Immediately." The lobby went silent. Ava didn't move. The security guards looked confused. The man slowly turned toward me. His expression shifted from annoyance to pure contempt. "And who the hell are you?" he snapped. "Maintenance," I said. He laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. "Exactly," he said. "So go fix a toilet." I held up the ID badge clipped to my belt. Not the employee one, the other one, building safety delegate. His smile faded slightly. "I'm the first responder for structural compliance incidents," I said calmly. His eyes narrowed. "And this," I added, nodding toward the floor, "is now a documented proximity violation." The guards suddenly straightened. They recognized the terminology. The man's jaw tightened. "You're joking," he said. "No," I replied. Then I took one slow step forward, blocking the only clear path behind Ava, and I said the one sentence that changed everything. "Step back," I told him, "or this becomes an official harassment report." For the first time since the confrontation began. The man hesitated, and Ava finally exhaled. But the look in his eyes told me something dangerous. He wasn't finished yet, not even close, because instead of stepping away, he started moving sideways, trying to circle around me, and I realized something in that exact moment. This man didn't care about rules, which meant the next move he made was going to decide everything. Mark didn't stop moving. He slid one careful step to the left, slow and deliberate, the way someone circles a problem instead of solving it. His eyes never left Ava, not even for a second. It was the kind of movement that looked harmless from far away. Anyone glancing across the lobby might think 3 professionals were simply standing near the elevators having a quiet disagreement. But I saw the geometry. I always see the geometry. He was trying to isolate her again, and if he got even half a step past me, he would restore the same pressure he had before. A tight one-on-one corner, that was the whole game. Fear works best when no one else is standing in the room. I adjusted my stance slightly, just a few inches. Most people wouldn't notice it, but the movement closed the gap he needed. Mark stopped again. His eyes flicked down toward my boots, then back up to my face. He finally understood. This wasn't going to be easy. "You really think this is your business?" he said quietly. His voice had changed now, less theatrical, more irritated. "That depends," I replied. "On what?" he asked. "On whether the situation becomes a building safety event." The words weren't emotional, they were procedural. That's what made them powerful. Mark leaned his head slightly to the side, studying me like someone examining a machine that shouldn't be in his way. Then he smiled again, but this time the smile looked different, sharper. "You're making a mistake," he said. I shrugged lightly. "Maybe." Ava finally spoke. Her voice was steady again. "Mark," she said calmly, "this is over." He didn't even glance at her. His focus stayed on me. "You think standing behind a janitor changes anything?" he said. That word hung in the air. Janitor. The kind of insult that usually lands in buildings like this. But it didn't land. Not with me. I've spent years in places where machines worth millions of dollars would kill you if you misread a pressure gauge. A man in an expensive suit doesn't scare me. Even an angry one, especially not an angry one. The security guards had started moving now, slow at first, but definitely moving, Mark noticed. His eyes flicked toward them for half a second, then back to Ava. He leaned forward again slightly, not close enough to trigger the proximity rule again, but close enough to keep the pressure alive. "You really think this ends with paperwork?" he said softly. Ava didn't answer, but her silence told me everything. This had been going on for a while. "Maybe weeks, maybe months." Mark spoke again. "You cost me a fortune," he said quietly. "You embarrassed me in front of people who matter." Still no response. "That project would have made everyone rich," he continued, "but you had to play the hero." Ava finally lifted her chin slightly. "I followed the law." Mark's smile widened. "Law," he repeated, then he leaned a fraction closer. "Law doesn't protect people like you think it does." The words were meant for her, but he made sure I heard them too. Classic intimidation tactic: spread the fear, make everyone wonder if they're next. My tablet vibrated once in my hand. The building logging system had automatically registered the incident marker I triggered earlier. Time stamp, location, proximity violation. Now the system was waiting for one thing: confirmation, level escalation. Mark must have noticed the screen light up. His eyes narrowed again. "You're actually reporting this?" he asked. I met his gaze. "Correct." For a second he looked genuinely surprised, like someone had broken an unwritten rule. People like him rely on those rules, the silent ones, the ones that say ordinary workers stay out of executive problems, but I've never cared about unwritten rules. Machines don't follow them either. Mark straightened slightly. His voice lost the whisper. "You're about to regret that," he said, and there it was, the first real threat, not loud, not violent, but clear. The security guards were now only 10 feet away. The older one spoke first. "Sir," he said cautiously, "we're going to need everyone to step apart." Mark ignored him completely. His eyes stayed locked on Ava. "You could have handled this differently," he said. Ava's voice was calm again. "I did handle it." Mark laughed softly. "No," he said, "you delayed it." The tension in the lobby had shifted. People were pretending to walk past, but they were watching now. You can feel when a situation crosses a line, and we had crossed it. Mark took one final look at Ava, then he made a decision. He moved suddenly, not toward her, toward me, just a small step but aggressive, a test, a push to see if I would move. I didn't. He stopped inches away. Now we were face to face. His voice dropped again. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," he said. I studied him for a moment. Then I said the most honest thing I could. "You're right." That confused him, so I continued. "But I do know systems," I said quietly, "and right now you're triggering every failure warning this building has." He stared at me. I held up the tablet so he could see the screen. The incident log was open, recording. Timestamps ticking forward. 3 witnesses, I said calmly, nodding toward the guards. Security audio. I tilted the tablet slightly. And now documentation. The smile finally disappeared from his face, because he understood something important in that moment. His power worked best in shadows, and the shadows were gone. The older guard stepped closer. "Sir, we need you to come with us," he said firmly. Mark looked between the 3 of us. His anger was still there, burning, but calculation had returned. And calculation told him the same thing it was telling me. The game had changed. He stepped back, just one step, but it was enough. The guards moved in immediately, one on each side, not grabbing him, just guiding. Mark didn't resist. He turned toward Ava one last time. And his voice came out low and cold. "This isn't finished." Then he walked with the guards toward the security office. The lobby slowly started breathing again. People moved, phones came out. Whispers started. Ava stayed where she was. Her shoulders finally dropped slightly, like someone had been holding a heavy weight for too long. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she turned toward me, really looked at me for the first time. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Correct," I replied. She studied my face. "Then why did you?" I thought about the answer. There were a lot of complicated ones, but the truth was simpler. My daughter, I said. Ava blinked slightly. What about her? I slipped the tablet back onto my belt. Lily believes the world works a certain way, I said. And if I stand here and watch something broken happen. I paused, then I'm teaching her the wrong rules. Ava was silent for a moment. Then she asked something that made my stomach tighten. How long have you been watching this happen? Today, I asked. No, she said quietly. How long have you noticed him following me? I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was uncomfortable, and when I finally spoke, I saw the fear return to her eyes. 3 weeks, I said, and today was the first time he looked like he might stop pretending. Ava's fingers tightened around her bag again. Pretending what? She asked. I met her gaze. Pretending he only wanted to scare you. Because the way Mark had looked at her a minute ago. Said something much worse. The lobby didn't feel normal after Mark left. People went back to their routines, shoes clicking across marble, elevator doors opening and closing, phones ringing. But when something dangerous passes through a room, the air remembers. Ava and I stood there for a few seconds longer. Neither of us moved. Then the older security guard returned from the office hallway. Police are on the way, he said. His tone had changed now, more serious, less hesitant. They're reviewing the footage and the incident report, he added, nodding toward the tablet on my belt. Ava gave a small, controlled nod. Thank you, she said. He looked at me next. Maintenance guy started the protocol, the guard said. Without that log, we wouldn't have anything official. I shrugged, just following procedure. The guard studied me for a moment, then walked away. Ava turned slightly toward the elevators but didn't step forward. Something was still bothering her. I could see it in the way she held her shoulders. You said 3 weeks, she said quietly. Yes. And you noticed him before today? Yes. She looked down briefly. Why didn't you say anything sooner? It was a fair question. The honest answer wasn't flattering. Because you never asked for help, I said. Her head lifted slowly. And today? You did. Ava let out a slow breath. The tension in her face softened just a little. Then the elevator doors opened behind us. A group of employees stepped out talking loudly about a meeting. They froze when they saw us standing there. Not because of me, because of Ava. Executives get noticed when they look shaken. They hurried past. Silence returned again. Ava turned fully toward me now. You said something else, she said. I waited. You said today was the first time he stopped pretending, she continued. That he might not just want to scare me. Yes. Her voice dropped. What did you mean by that? I thought about how to answer. Most people want comfort. They want reassurance, but machines taught me something important. Bad readings shouldn't be ignored just because they're inconvenient, so I told her the truth. He changed patterns today, I said. Her eyebrows tightened. Patterns. Distance, I explained. Movement speed, I focus. Ava didn't interrupt, so I continued. Before today he stayed in intimidation range, I said. What does that mean? She asked. Close enough to control your space, I said, but far enough to avoid escalation. She nodded slowly. And today? Today he crossed the line. Her grip tightened on her bag again. Why? I looked toward the security office hallway where Mark had disappeared. Because intimidation stops working eventually, I said. And when that happens... I paused. People like him change tactics. Ava's expression hardened. What tactic? Before I could answer, the lobby doors opened. 2 police officers walked in. The younger one carried a small notepad. The older one scanned the room quickly. They spoke briefly with the security guards. Then they approached us. Ma'am, the older officer said gently, we'd like to hear what happened. Ava straightened immediately. Executive posture returning, clear voice, controlled breathing. The transformation was almost instant. Yes, she said, of course. They asked questions, short ones, direct ones. What time did the confrontation begin? What exactly did Mark say? Had there been previous incidents? Ava answered calmly, precise, professional, but when the officer asked about the past 6 months, the story changed. 6 months, the officer repeated. Yes, Ava said, 6 months of harassment. The officer wrote something down. What kind of harassment? Psychological, she said. Following me in parking garages. Standing too close in elevators. Waiting outside conference rooms. She paused, and whispering things he shouldn't know. The officer looked up, such as. Ava hesitated. Then she said something that made the situation heavier. Information about my personal schedule. The officer's pen stopped moving. How detailed? Too detailed, she said quietly. The officer nodded slowly. Then he turned to me. You're the one who initiated the incident report. Yes. Why? I gave him the same answer I had given Ava. Proximity violation, I said. Aggressive space intrusion. He raised an eyebrow slightly. You're trained in that. Certified safety delegate, I replied. He nodded once. Good call. Then the officer looked back at Ava. We'll take him in for questioning, he said. But if what you're describing is accurate. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to, because everyone in the lobby understood what it meant. Stalking, intimidation, escalation. The officers walked back toward the security office, and for the first time since the confrontation started, the situation actually felt under control, but Ava didn't relax, not completely. She watched the hallway where the officers disappeared, then she looked at me again. You still think he's going to escalate, she said. It wasn't a question, it was a realization. Yes, I said. Why? Because men like him don't lose quietly. Ava studied my face. You speak from experience. A little. Years ago on an oil rig, a supervisor ignored a pressure warning because it would have slowed production. 12 hours later, a pipe burst. 3 men were injured. 1 almost died. That lesson sticks with you. Small warnings matter. You should be careful, Ava said suddenly. Her voice carried a different tone now. Concern. For me? I asked. Yes. She gestured toward the hallway again. You challenged him publicly. Yes. You documented it. Yes. You humiliated him in front of security. I shrugged. That part was his decision. Ava shook her head slightly. You don't understand men like Mark. Explain. They don't forget humiliation, she said. They collect it. The words hung between us. Then she added something that made the whole situation clearer. And when they collect enough, they try to erase the person who caused it. The lobby lights hummed quietly overhead, for the first time that morning. I considered the possibility that stepping in had created a new problem, not just for her, for me. Ava seemed to realize the same thing. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. For what? For pulling you into this. You didn't pull me. You stepped in because I asked. Yes. And now you might become part of his problem. I thought about Lily again, her drawing, stick figures in every window, someone watching, someone refusing to ignore danger. Maybe, I said. Ava looked like she wanted to say something else, but before she could, a loud voice echoed from the hallway, angry, sharp, Mark. Even from 30 feet away I could hear the rage. This is ridiculous. One of the officers spoke calmly, but Mark kept shouting. And then something happened that made my instincts tighten again. Footsteps, fast ones. The officers were bringing him back through the lobby. His hands weren't cuffed, which meant one thing. He hadn't been arrested, not yet. Mark's eyes locked onto Ava the second he stepped into view. The rage in them was unmistakable now. No more pretending, no more quiet intimidation, just anger, pure and direct. The officer guiding him spoke firmly. Sir, you need to leave the premises. Mark didn't look at him. His attention stayed on Ava, then on me, and he said something that made every nerve in my body alert. You think this ends here? No one answered. Mark smiled slowly, cold, patient. No, he said quietly. This is just where it starts. And then he walked out the lobby doors. But the look he gave us before leaving said he meant every word. The lobby looked normal again after Mark walked out. Too normal. People returned to their routines like nothing had happened. Phones rang. Elevator doors chimed. Conversation started again. But the tension didn't disappear. It just moved somewhere quieter. Ava and I stood near the security desk for a few more minutes while the police finished speaking with the guards. The officers took my incident log, copied the audio fragments from my tablet, and filed an official harassment report. It was the kind of paperwork that turns intimidation into evidence. Mark had relied on shadows. Documentation destroys shadows. Still, when the officers left, Ava didn't move. She stared at the lobby doors Mark had just walked through. "You believe him," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I answered. She nodded slowly. "Good." That surprised me. "Good?" I asked. "Yes." She finally turned toward me again. "Because if you believed he was bluffing," she said, "you might relax. And that would be dangerous." I considered that. Fair point. Ava adjusted the strap of her bag, then glanced toward the elevators. "I should get back upstairs," she said. "Probably." She took 2 steps toward the elevator bank, then stopped and turned back. "Jake." "Yes." Her voice had softened. "You said something earlier." "What was that?" "You said your daughter needs to believe the world is reliable." "Yes." Ava looked down briefly. Then she said something I didn't expect. "My father used to say something similar." I waited. "He used to tell me," she said, "that the difference between a good world and a dangerous one is simple." "What difference?" "Whether good people stay silent." The elevator doors opened behind her. She didn't step in. Instead, she looked at me again. "Thank you," she said quietly. Then she entered the elevator. The doors closed, and the lobby felt strangely empty. I finished logging the final incident details into the building system before heading upstairs to check the HVAC diagnostics on the 10th floor. Maintenance work doesn't stop just because drama happens. Systems still need attention. Fans still spin. Filters still clog. Stability requires routine. An hour later, I was standing in the 10th floor service corridor tightening a valve on a filtration unit when I heard footsteps. Soft ones. I already knew who it was. Ava stopped near the maintenance railing. No assistants. No security guards, just her. "Am I interrupting?" she asked. "Not really." I finished tightening the valve and closed my toolbox. The corridor smelled faintly of ozone and filtered water. Not exactly executive territory, but she didn't seem uncomfortable. "I wanted to ask you something," she said. "Okay." She leaned lightly against the railing. "When you stepped in today," she said, "you didn't hesitate." "That's not true." Her eyebrows lifted. "You hesitated." "Yes." "How long?" "About 2 seconds." Ava smiled slightly. "That's not hesitation. It is when the decision could change your life." She studied my face. "Why did you decide to step in?" I thought about giving her the technical answer again. Procedures, proximity rules, safety protocol, but the real answer wasn't technical. "It's simple," I said. "Tell me." "Because Lily is watching." Ava frowned slightly. "She wasn't here." "No," I said, "but she's always watching." Ava waited. "Kids learn the world by watching what adults do," I continued. "If they see people ignore something wrong, they think that's normal," Ava finished quietly. "Exactly." She nodded slowly. "My father used to say something similar." "What did he say?" "He said courage isn't dramatic," she replied. "It's quiet." The corridor fell silent for a moment. Then Ava asked the question again. But this time it sounded completely different, not desperate, not frightened, just curious. "Jake," she said softly. "Yes." "Can you protect me for life?" I smiled slightly, because now the answer was easier. "No," I said honestly. She didn't look surprised. "No," she repeated. "No one can promise that," I explained. "Why not?" Because real safety doesn't come from one person. Ava crossed her arms thoughtfully. Then where does it come from? Systems, I said, rules, accountability, and people who refuse to ignore problems. Ava nodded slowly. That's exactly what you did. Not exactly. What do you mean? You stood up first, I said, her eyebrows lifted. You voted against Mark's project. Yes. You chose integrity over profit. She smiled faintly. That's just my job. Exactly. I closed the toolbox and leaned against the railing. You fixed the first failure, I said. What failure? The ethical one. And you fixed the second. The structural one. Ava considered that for a moment. Then she extended her hand. It was a simple gesture, professional, respectful, equal. I shook it. Her hand was smooth. Mine was rough from years of tools and machinery, two different worlds, but at that moment they met in the middle. You know, Ava said thoughtfully, the building feels different today. Why? Because people saw what happened. That helps. And because the system changed. That was true. After the incident report, management had already begun revising security procedures. New training, new escalation rules, real accountability. Ava looked down the corridor. Mark relied on silence, she said. Yes. And today that silence broke. Correct. She smiled again. Then maybe that's what protection really looks like. Maybe. Ava turned toward the elevators. But before leaving, she said one last thing, a sentence that stayed with me long after she walked away. Safety, she said quietly, isn't something one person gives you. She paused, then finished the thought. It's something good people refuse to look away from. And somehow, that simple truth made the whole building feel stronger. Not because one man stepped in, but because one moment proved something important. Courage doesn't shout, it steps forward, and that changes everything.